As a Texas Railroad Commissioner, I'm proud that our state continues to be the #1 producer of oil and gas in the nation. In fact, Texas accounts for nearly 1/3 of all U.S. crude oil and natural gas production.
Well, clearly the president is trying to defeat this project through delay. We're now in year 6. And I think he epitomizes that by putting out an announcement on the afternoon of Good Friday to try to minimize the press coverage. I've got legislation to approve it congressionally. And we've gotten about 56, 57 votes. We need to exceed the 60-vote threshold.
Well, the Keystone XL pipeline decision has been delayed, deciding not to decide, saying the State Department needs more time to assess the route in Nebraska as litigation goes forward, and also to hear from comments, more than 2.5 million of them, according to the State Department. A couple of other senators and congressmen weighed in, as you can imagine. Senator Barbara Boxer, a proponent of this decision, said given the unprecedented number of comments from the public on Keystone XL pipeline proposal, the legal uncertainties due to lawsuits in Nebraska, the State Department was entirely correct to delay a decision on the pipeline. It's been delayed numerous times. When you look at the public perception of the pipeline, take a look at the most recent poll. Pew Research Center favor 61%. Oppose 27%. Here's another Democrat, however, who is appalled by the decision. Mary Landrieu, of course, up for re-election in Louisiana, released this statement. The decision is irresponsible, unnecessary, and unacceptable by making it clear that they will not move the process forward until there is a resolution in a lawsuit in Nebraska. The administration is sending a signal that the small minority who oppose the pipeline can tie up the process in court forever. There are 42,000 jobs, $20 billion in economic activity, and North America's energy security at stake. With that set up, let's bring in our panel. Jason Riley, editorial board member of the Wall Street Journal. Elise Viebeck, staff writer for The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Jason.
Yes, this is not about delay. It's about trying to kill the projects. It also illustrates to me, Brett, how ideologically driven this president is. Put aside the Republican criticisms. You've got Democrats like Senator Landrieu you just quoted in tough Senate races. Mark Begich in Alaska is another one. Mark Pryor in Arkansas is another one. These guys are getting killed in their campaigns over this issue. The president doesn't care. You've got labor leaders saying, Mr. President, tens of thousands of jobs, well-paying union jobs. He doesn't care. The only group that has his ear are the radical Greens. He can't get his climate change legislation through Congress, and this is all he has to offer them, obstruction on purely symbolic basis.
Environmental groups, Elise, like Tom Steyer's group, who is putting a lot of his own money into these elections come November, he released this statement: "This is rotten eggs for TransCanada and good news on Good Friday for those who oppose Keystone as not being in our nation's best interest." It appears that Tom Steyer has made an impact, or at least you could assume so, with some of these decisions.
Absolutely. I think it's clear that the White House is listening to its left flank. I think that there are also worse things for people like Mary Landrieu than to be seen blasting President Obama in the re-election race. So there's certainly a mixed bag for Democrats here. Clearly unions do support the project going forward. They're very angry with President Obama, but he's also concerned about turnout on the left, and he's concerned about those donors who are highly motivated this cycle to beat Republicans and maintain control of the Senate, and they tend to be concerned about environmental issues.
Which is really interesting, because you look back at the interview we just had here on Special Report with the ambassador to Canada, and just take another listen.
There's hundreds of trucks every day on Highway 2 in North Dakota.
Which are spewing out emissions left and right.
Well, they have higher emissions. There is a role for rail for smaller refineries, but when you look at the amount of oil coming from North Dakota, Montana, and Canada, it is the cleanest, safest way to proceed. And that's the debate has become symbolic but not substantial in terms of the why we should proceed with this project.
Making the case that the market's there, Charles. The trucks and the railway, they're going to deliver it at more emissions than a pipeline would.
Look, this is the most open and shut case for any energy product, any project anywhere that I have ever seen. The ambassador spelled it out in minute detail, economically, in terms of national security, our dependence on the Venezuelans, on the Middle East, clearly in terms of jobs, in terms of energy independence, but even on the terms that the opposition is arguing, greenhouse gases, it fails on its own terms. The oil will come through, the oil is coming through, and it comes through, as he explained, on rail and truck, which creates more emissions. There is no substantial ground on which to make the case. In fact, it's very dangerous. We know there was an accident with rail through Quebec carrying oil that destroyed a town, killed, burned to death 40 people instantly. And the other thing that he didn't mention is that these oil shipments are taking up so much of the rail transport that other goods can't get to market in the United States, which increases the price of all the products that travel through the western and northern United States. In other words, every economic argument is against this, and all that's left, I think, as Jason said, is pure ideology. I would just add one fact that the ambassador was too discreet to mention. It is a spit in the eye of Canada. Our closest ally helps us in all kinds of tight spots around the world, trying to help us with Ukraine. And this is absolute disrespect of the highest order for our closest friend.
You know, Jason, I get a lot of emails and tweets from people who say this is about Warren Buffett and he owns the railways and this is political payback. You buy any of that?
I think this is about his inability to work with Congress to get his agenda through. President Obama. And he really has nothing else to offer these green groups. He has nothing of substance, and they're interested in a symbolic victory here. This is a cause célèbre among the radical Greens, and that's who he's trying to appease here. I also think this notion that a court case or we need more safety reviews of this being put forward by the administration as an excuse is also bogus. This is a president who has not hesitated to use his executive authority to get things done when it suits his agenda. This does not suit his agenda.
And quickly, Elise, for Democrats making this case, does this make it tougher? Maybe even not the red state Democrats like Landrieu and Begich, but other Democrats. Does it make it tougher for them with this issue, or does it help them?
Well, I think the real test is going to come after November when Republicans perhaps claim the Senate, and then you have two chambers in support of this. Will President Obama continue to say no?